Parshas Korach. You have towards the end of Parshas Korach, where the pasuk says that the Jewish people came and complained to Moshe Rabbeinu. You caused the death of the Am Hashem. People died. Of course, the whole story of Korach and the whole story of the 250 men who wanted to bring the karbanos, and you caused that these people died. And they complained bitterly. And Moshe Rabbeinu sees that it's not going to sit well with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And there started to be a plague. So he quickly sends Aaron, and he says, go and take a fire pan and put Ketoret on the fire pan and take it out, the incense, take it out among the people. This should be a kapara, an atonement for the people. And then Aaron does that, and he runs, and the Magefa stopped, and Aaron comes back to Moshe. Rashi says, where did Moshe Rabbeinu get this idea that Aaron should go ahead and take the Ketores and run to the people? He says, when Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai, then it says that the Malachim gave Moshe gifts. They were so impressed with Moshe Rabbeinu that they gave him gifts. And even the Malach HaMoves gave Moshe Rabbeinu a gift. He told him, I'm going to give you a secret. When there's a problem, go take the Ketorah, take the incense. And that's something that will stop a Magefa, stop a plague. But you go a few psukim later in Rashi. Rashi says, what does it mean that Aaron went and then he said that went back to Moshe and they stopped the plague and something back and forth? He says what happened was that Aaron came with this Ketores into the people, and the Malach HaMoves, he grabbed the Malach HaMoves, and the Malach HaMoves said, hey, what are you doing? So Aaron said, Moshe sent me here to stop the plague. Malach HaMoves says, what are you talking about? Hashem sent me here to give a plague. He says, yeah, but Moshe Rabbeinu told me to stop the plague. Says Aaron to the Malach HaMoves, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't do anything without Hashem. And therefore, you better stop. So they went back to Moshe, and indeed Hashem told Moshe to send the Torah to stop the plague, and the plague stopped. So it's a contradiction. If the Malach HaMoves is the one who gave him the idea, so why all of a sudden he's changing his mind? He's objecting to it and have to go back to Moshe. So in the Rashi, there's a parenthesis. That parenthesis comes from the Marsha. The Marsha, famous Marsha from the Gemara, he puts in certain comments on the Rashi. And he notes this contradiction. And he says that obviously the Ketores can't stop a plague if Hashem would decree it on a person who's going to die, so the Ketores is not going to stop the plague. He says what happened was that Aaron came and said to the Malach HaMoves, stop. The Malach HaMoves says, yeah, but I was sent here to do a job. The job the Malach HaMoves was doing was not on the specific people that Hashem had said, Mr. X, Mr. X, Mr. Y, right, whatever, Mr. Z. But when there's a plague, it's open-ended. And that's where there was a discussion between the Malach HaMoves and Aaron. The Malach HaMoves said, Hashem sent me. Aaron says, yeah, those that Hashem sent you to do, fine, but further than that, you don't do. And it was for those people who are beyond the direct instructions of Hashem that they had to die, that was where the Keturahs helped, right? And it stopped the plague. But it's still a little difficult. Still some rough edges over here, because Aaron tells that Malach HaMavis, Hashem commanded Moshe, that it wasn't from Moshe, it wasn't from Moshe, it was from Hashem, but it came from the Malach HaMavis. It's still, there's something here that's a little confusing. So it occurred to me that perhaps the interpretation over here is like this. The Malach HaMavis told Moshe Rabbeinu a secret. The secret that he told him was that when there is a plague, you go ahead and bring the incense. And when you do that, then something is going to happen. What's going to happen? Is it going to stop the plague? You know what? When Aaron came to the Malach HaMavis with the incense, the Malach HaMavis didn't have to have a discussion with Aaron. After all, the Malach HaMavis is a Malach. Aaron is human. The Malach HaMavis didn't have to pay any attention. The secret that the Malach HaMavis told Moshe Rabbeinu was, if you bring the incense, it'll quiet things down to the point where at least there's a discussion. And perhaps the idea of it is, the Keturah, the incense, is very calming. When you have something which smells very nice, you come into a place where there's a nice smell. It's very relaxing. And perhaps that was the secret that the Malach HaMavis had given to Moshe. That when there's a situation of chaos, there's a situation of a plague, calm the air. How? Bring the incense. And it was because of that that the Malach HaMavis spoke to Aaron. Once they had a discussion, so then they were able to work it out. Let's go to Moshe. How much yes, how much not to, where is there? Because once the air has been calmed, once you're able to talk to each other, then there's room for finding out exactly what's the right thing to be done. Maybe that was the lesson of the Malach HaMavis. And it could even be that that's why Moshe Rabbeinu told the 250 people who went with Korach, who be'etzem, these were people who were good people, but they wanted to get closer to God and do service of Hashem, take the Keturahs. You know why? Because maybe the Keturahs would cause them to stop and to take a breath, and maybe they would have been able to realize, what am I doing here? Maybe that was really Moshe Rabbeinu's intent. If that's the case, then there's a lesson for us. There's a lesson in life. We all have situations and circumstances where there's chaos, where there's confusion, when there's excitement, and everybody's putting their opinions in. Everybody's saying this and that and the other thing. The Malach HaMavis says, the first thing you do is calm down. Wait. Let's discuss this. Let's sit down for a minute. As soon as you're able to calm the air and to have a discussion, that can be a tremendous yeshua. That's very important in life. We should all be zocheh to learn that lesson. It can do us great service